Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Raj. For those of you that aren't resident here, who don't know, did you notice how it went quiet? All of a sudden? Yeah, that's... This is the most amazing retreat experience that I personally have ever had or ever experienced. And for those of you that are from outside, just to share with you, this is unbelievable. It's like we're sitting in a sea of Holy Spirit that instantly brings up and manifests your desire or whatever else you might have in some way indicated would be of interest to you. It's also interested in avoidance. That brings all that up too. So we're having a remarkable time. And David, who I'm sure most of you know, is there anybody here who's not experienced David before? Oh, well, you're in for a real treat. So the only thing I can share with you about this beautiful man is just forget everything you know about human beings, because this is not one. Nobody has functions, but that's the end of it, right? He changes clothes once in a while. He'll do everything that you don't expect him to do, like have a steak and a bottle of wine, and then he'll have basically whatever else is offering, at any time. He's just remarkable, and somehow we've been gifted with the magnificence of this energy field that he's brought to this experience, which is mind-boggling. Speaking just for this one here, I am sitting in the soup of it and loving every second, so it's awesome. It's a real gift to be able to bring it to those of you who are not part of the retreat. There's nearly 60 of us at this retreat, so it's a big experience, a big group. And we'll definitely be doing it again next year, and we'll probably be doing it in the latter part of March. So if you have friends who you think might be interested, you might want to just share the experience that you have tonight. David has an organisation, non-profit organisation in the States called Awakening Mind, and that is a foundation which has, how long has it been? You've been collecting that material?
I started traveling in 1991, and the foundation's been going since 1991.
Yeah, so since 1991, nearly all of David's talks and the work that he's done traveling around the world several times has all been recorded. They have a massive website with incredible resources that you can go on and just take that. Les, where are you? How many hours have you listened to?
I think about 400 hours, and I've listened twice and more.
There's an amazing resource of materials that is there free for you on MP3s and whatnot to just pick up and to explore. There's also a resource table over here, and Jason, who's involved in the organisation and doing teaching here at the retreat, is going to be talking to you towards the end of the evening about the materials that we've got if anybody is interested. But otherwise, I think that's about it, and probably we'll get going right now. And it'll be about, depending on when David feels to cease, or I wave at him practically, one or the other, which will be sometime between now and midnight. No, usually about 2 hours. And you going to do a question and answer? Yeah, so feel free at any time to put your hand up. And if you have a question to ask, if you just stand up and ask it loudly so everybody can hear, be appreciated. As soon as you've asked it, you can sit down and just be the recipient of whatever response comes. We are also filming this activity for our own purposes. So if there's anybody here who's with somebody that they shouldn't be, they might want to sit separately. Don't all move simultaneously, it's embarrassing. So if you don't want to be on the camera and the camera happens to run past you, just put your hands over your eyes. You won't be seen. So have a lovely evening and enjoy it. And if there's any, as I say, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask. This is a golden opportunity to ask the deepest level questions that you can possibly come up with. So don't look for the shallow ones. Go for gold. Okay.
Thanks,
very grateful that you're here. And we were actually down in the Gold Coast at Raj's house when he was saying, should we do something like public, open to the public, which is generally what I've been doing for the last 17 years. It's pretty much all open to the public, and traveling in 21 different countries, and basically only where I'm invited, because what I teach is a true spirituality, true peace of mind, true happiness is really something for you to discover within yourself, not something to proselytize, to try to convince somebody about, to try to tell the world about. It's an attitude. It's like Jesus talked about the Beatitudes, and we could say happiness, joy, peace, freedom, living in a state of divine grace, that this is it's a wonderful state of mind, and it has been called nirvana, or the kingdom of heaven, or the present moment, or many different names. And for me, the names really are not that important. It's the experience that's important. So I've done these talks around the world, and people come and say, that they're atheists, agnostic, that they're believers in God in different religions or different spiritualities. They're into quantum physics, and I've kind of touched on a lot of those things. So it feels like in the state of being in the present moment, then I can just let it flow through in whatever is helpful, and answer the atheist or the agnostic or the scientist or whatever with equal ease. So it doesn't so much matter what perspective you seem to be coming from, that it's love is an all-inclusive experience, and it doesn't exclude anyone. And it's really not even a matter of belief. You can say, I think Kenny Loggins did a song one time called I Believe in Love, but love is actually beyond belief. It doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not, it just is what is. And then we could say that whatever seems to be blocking that love or covering it over is something that needs to be exposed and released, so that you can just experience being in love all the time, not falling in love and then falling out of love, as typically we have with human relationships and romantic relationships. Are you in love? Did you break up? Are you getting married? Are you getting divorced? It's love is really not applicable to all those changing states of mind and changing concepts that just come and go. So we were generating lots of different names, and then Raj finally went, I've got it. Illusion and the reality of love. I think that was the full title. I think it did, yeah, actually. So Raj gave the title for tonight's talk.
Thank you.
I think it's the short version on the schedule said illusion and reality, but that's the full title. And I never know what's going to come out of my mouth on any given night or any given place, so sometimes people like to have a title. It makes them feel more comfortable to know what the topic is, but we can, that's a very broad title. I think we should be able to cover the whole gamut of everything in that, and the reality of love, the forcefulness of the all-powerful, all-loving experience of what is real and true. Come on in. Oh, the movie night's another night. For those of you that haven't been here, you can see the pillows and blankets. We end up showing metaphysical movies, and people curl up and they do like a little slumber party thing. Except they have to leave the auditorium at a certain point to go back and take their blankets and pillows. But so that kind of sets a little bit of the tone of what our discussion is. Like Raj was saying, this is really a dialogue, not a lecture or talk. So if I'm talking about something and something comes up in your mind, like, well, wait a minute, whoa, what about this or what about that? Feel free to raise your hand or to stand up, like Raj says, and just ask a question, and that will propel us along. So we're all in this together. The Spirit is the Spirit of love is here with us and wants us to feel happy and joyful and experience a state of clarity and love and oneness. So it's all like an orchestra playing together, or a symphony. There's no, don't feel that you're asking too personal of a question or too intimate of a question. Don't hold back because you feel like it might be a taboo. This group generally, they've asked a lot of things and they've faced a lot of things, so there's, if someone feels embarrassed, then that's good. That's something else to work through and forgive. but I won't. So, feel free to raise any topics or issues you'd like to. The first part of the title is illusion, and the last part fits into the reality of love. And as we often do in these gatherings, we start off with a song or two. So I've asked Kirsten to play a couple songs, and you can think of it as like a little moment of relaxation after your busy day, to just kick back and let your mind sink into a nice peaceful state. The first one's called Real Love, and it really relates to the talk tonight, to the whole topic. It's from a friend of mine in the United States named Donna Marie Carey. And then the second one is called You Can Relax Now. And it's a very soft, gentle song to help bring us into a state of receptivity and openness for the ideas that we'll share tonight. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy these two songs.
The only Come on and open your eyes. Breathe deeply now. I'm with you. Oh, my sweet, sweet child. Who do you think you are? You are the child of God, and that will never change. You had a dream. You misunderstood. You thought we were separate, but now you hear my voice and you can relax now. Come on and open your eyes. Breathe deeply now. I'm with you. You are the love of my life. You are my one creation. You are eternity, and that will never change. You had a dream. You misunderstood. You thought we were separate, but now you hear my voice and you can relax now. Come on and open your eyes. Breathe deeply now. I'm with you. You are the love of my life. You are my one creation. You are eternity, and that will never You can relax now. I am with you. You are the child of God, and that will never change. You can relax now. You are the child of God.
So if we had to put words to the reality of love, you could child of God, and that will never change. And if we had to come up with synonyms for illusion, we could say temporary, ephemeral, phenomenal, transitory, the test of reality that you can give to your mind in a simple phrase as the question is it passing or is it everlasting? It's a very simple question that you can ask with any thought, any emotion, any perception that arises in consciousness and awareness. Is it passing or is it everlasting? That's the distinction we're going to talk about tonight between illusion and reality, the passing and the everlasting, the changing and the changeless, the temporary and the eternal. So we've been sharing some beautiful ideas this week from some inspired books. One of them has been A Course in Miracles, and the summary of A Course in Miracles is nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So we could say that those are like our divine metaphysics for this talk. And for human beings and for the human condition, this will be require some convincing. Not that you have to convince anybody about this, but that you have to be convinced yourself about the truth that is extending these statements. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So that's what we're going to explore tonight. We're going to go into that. Take a look at illusion versus reality. And do it in a very practical way, because we're not here to talk about a new theology or some new program. Basically, we're here to just expose and be honest and take a look at our state of mind and look at what is the outcome of our state of mind. You know, are we feeling the peace? Are we feeling the happiness and joy? And if not, what is stopping us? What is in the way from having this experience in a constant way, in a consistent way? And it's very, very profound. We just listened to a song called Real Love, and it says that there's a love not of this world. That's the only real love. And so just that statement alone, when we start to think of the word love, we may have different connotations and meaning that come to mind. You know, romantic love, love of the family, parents and children, love of pets, love of nature, love of sports teams or motorcycles and race cars. You know, there could be a lot of things that you could associate with that love, but when we hear that phrase, there's a love not of this world, the only real love, we could say that there must be a distinction between divine love or God's love and what has been made up in this world to be love, because it goes by many different names and faces in this world. But the thing that helped clarify it for me was one simple phrase, which is love has no object. Think about that for a moment. Love has no object. That's what makes God's love, or divine love, distinct from all the different ways we use love in this world. Because you see the bumper stickers, it's I heart, I love, and then there's a lot of different things that come after the love. And those things could be objects. It's objectifying. And it's a very simple line, love has no object. But when you start to think about it, that is a very distinguishing characteristic. If we think of, for example, eternal or eternity, we don't generally think of objects in association with that, because every object that we're familiar with in this cosmos is passing. It's very transitory, including the stars in the sky. They're just burning gases that will burn out. There's so much, everything seems to be in motion. The atoms, the electrons, and the protons whirling around the nucleus, molecules moving, whether we're looking at organic, inorganic. However, if you go down more to subatomic particles, you see this motion, this whirring of energy. And you might say that motion is in the soup of time and space. And what we're talking about with eternity is just pure abstraction. So I would say that in the end, love is abstract. Love is not specific, and love cannot be objectified, which is why there's such a struggle in the daily lives of men and women, searching for love, listening to all these love songs on the radio. Now we've got YouTube, MySpace. It's lots of love stories and love songs and love sonnets and poems and melodies, and yet what we're saying is there's a love that's not of this world, that is the real love, that is everlasting, it never changes. And that's what's yearned for in this lifetime. There's famous songs, Carole King wrote a song, "Will you still love me tomorrow?" That's a pretty common thing, That's why we have things like marriage. Will you still love me tomorrow? Okay, let's get a blood test and a certificate. Let's make it legal. Let's bring the lawyers in the legal system to prove it. What? Prenuptial? Okay. Prenuptial agreements, just look at how much focus on the future is placed into that love. Will you still love me tomorrow? But underneath that, will you still love me tomorrow, is just a desire for continuity, which is a sense of everlasting love. There's nothing wrong with desiring that. I would say one simple statement we could say is that everything that you could ever want or desire, you already have and are now. And that's beautiful. It's a beautiful statement. It's just that the human condition is a way of going not to that statement. The human condition is a denial of everything that you could desire or want, you already have and are. And if you just look around or you think about the human condition, you can see what I'm talking about. There's always some kind of emotion, ambition, always some kind of search, some kind of desire to achieve, to accumulate, to rise up. It's always an attempt to fulfill. And when there's an attempt to fulfill, it means there must already previously be a sense of lack, a condition of lack or scarcity. And that very lack or scarcity must be the denial of love, that you already have and are everything. Because love is whole, love is complete. Some of you remember from the Bible, in Corinthians, love does not possess, it's never jealous, it's never boastful. It's a beautiful passage in Corinthians about love, all those beautiful characteristics, and it's not describing romantic love, and it's not describing a love that is bound in time and space. It's describing this transcendent experience of love. So what I'm saying is that love is reality. It simply is, and you can either be aware of it or not, but it doesn't change the love. It's not going anywhere. You know, there's nowhere for it to go. It doesn't conform to the laws of time and space. In time and space, we have laws of gravity, and we have laws of physics, and we have many different laws of economics, laws of medicine, laws of nutrition. You know, we could go on and on discussing them, but I would say that all of those laws could be summarized and put into one category: illusion. And you could say, in one sense, that it's like a cosmic joke. If putting so much energy into meaningless laws would have to, at some point, get to be very funny, because it would be like Larry and Curly and Moe, like a Three Stooges thing. You know, they're always banging into each other and falling down and doing this. Or, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, Shakespeare wrote Much Ado About Nothing. If these laws are not really coming from eternity and they don't have any lasting value, then they must be illusions or valueless by that standard, because they're just temporary, like passing shadows on the wall. You know, here one day and gone the next. So what we're opening to, what the purpose of this retreat is, what the purpose of me seeming to travel to 21 countries and do lots of public gatherings, is simply to open up to an experience of that which is, that which has forever been the same, which is an experience of radiant love, love that's so powerful that if you could have a glimpse of it, you probably would just start crying if you had a glimpse of it, because it would be so beautiful, more beautiful than the most beautiful symphony, or the most beautiful piece of music that you've ever seen, or the most beautiful flower that you've ever witnessed, because it's something that's so dear to your heart, and you would recognize it if you experienced it. Because, why? Because it's who you are. It's who we all are. And to recognize something, it must mean that you've known it before. You know, that's what the meaning of recognition is. You must have known it before. So we're not talking about learning a new concept or accumulating a bunch of theology or adhering to a bunch of doctrine like little mice and rats running through a maze. We're talking about dropping all pretense, dropping all erroneous concepts and ideas, and just emptying your mind of everything and having like a pool of stillness where you can be receptive to what love is. You may want to close that. Do we have air conditioning still? It's too noisy. Love doesn't even get hot, so don't worry about it. Harrison got a window the other way.
I'll be fine then.
Raj said he'll be fine now. So one of the ways that I kind of launch into this in a very practical way is when I go around to these different countries, a lot of times I'll start off a gathering to kind of get the ball rolling by making a simple statement that I don't have any opinions about anything. Because I would say that opinions definitely are in the realm of illusion. Opinions, gossip, it's just as temporary as passing clouds. And you know how the weather changes along the ocean here. Those clouds just come and go and come and go. And people have said, well, I don't know, it doesn't sound really practical. I don't see how you can actually move through time and space without any opinions. seems like something strange or odd or weird would happen to you if you had no opinions. But I assure you, there's nothing strange or odd or weird about having no opinions. It's actually quite delightful and peaceful. And so that means that when people get into discussions about politics and the ozone layer, you know, the global warming, or things like abortion, war, vegetarianism, animal rights, you know, you can just go down the list. I definitely can tell you I have no opinions about any of those things. I once believed in a lot of those things, and once considered myself an activist, actually, and I was such a passionate activist. The only thing that got me one time was I realized that I was an angry peace activist. And I was working on integrity, and it's like, I think there's a contradiction here. You are an angry peace activist. And it's like the spirit was like, ha ha ha, gotcha. You call yourself a peace activist, and you aren't even that. You can't even be a good peace activist if you're angry. And so, again, this is a very humbling journey. My activist days are long gone, been gone for actually many years, because I've come to a state of acceptance, and I've come first to a state of seeing the folly of trying to change the illusion. It's kind of like, to use a kind of a graphic example, the Titanic has hit the iceberg. The compartments of the Titanic, this steel ship, are filled up with water. It's tilting, and it's going down. And it would be like rearranging the deck chairs as the ship is sinking. You'll notice even in the movie Titanic, nobody was bothering. They were jumping into life rafts, they were screaming, shouting, dropping off the high part of the ship. If you remember that movie with Kate Winslet and Leonardo in there, nobody was staying behind to rearrange the deck chairs. But actually that's exactly what activism is in this world. It's trying to rearrange the deck chairs of this world to try to bring about a more noble outcome. You might even say to make the world a better place. But what if the world was an illusion, and you were just tinkering with all the dominoes and the building blocks, trying to make a better illusion? At some point it might start to seem like a laughable contradiction, like almost like a cosmic joke. Why are you trying to improve an impossible situation? Why are you trying to make a better illusion when the definition of illusion is not real? That would be trying to make a better not real. You know, if you put the words together in the most graphic way. So this seemed to take me 10 years of university and lots of relationships and lots of meditation and lots of different techniques and travels and spiritual communities, and oh yeah, there could be a book written on all that. But actually it does come down to a moment of clarity that you cannot change what is false. The definition of false is false, and therefore to try to change it must believe that there's some aspect of it that's salvageable or that contains an element of truth. But the teaching I'm sharing is, no, the truth is true and only the truth is true. The truth doesn't contain a little bit of falsity. I go around and I hear people talking about their spirituality, and they'll say, well, what's true for me? It's like, David, it's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Let me tell you my truth now. My? Oh my gosh, how many are there? Well, there's one for everybody. There's 6 billion different versions of the truth? Oh, well, we can see why we have a world of chaos if we have 6 billion versions of the truth going around and colliding with each other. So we could just say truth is one. Truth doesn't have an object either. It doesn't have a person that it needs to believe in it, to be what it is. It simply is what it is, and it's love. Truth is love. So as you go deeper into the spiritual experience, the questions start to fall away. The contradictions start to fall away. the conflict starts to just fall away. Love, oneness, there is no conflict in that. But to believe something opposite of love, to believe in duality, to believe in specifics, to believe in parts and contradictions, that's where the illusion seems to take on a reality that it doesn't have. And that's where we just have to pause for a moment, take a deep breath and go, I hope I've been wrong about whatever I'm perceiving here. I hope, I wish, I pray I've been wrong, because I would rather be happy than right. And so that's another good thing about not having opinions, is if you don't have any opinions, you don't have any concern about being right. Opinions always involve right and wrong in the world. Also, we've been raised with things like morality and ethics. You might say it's like been seemingly a noble attempt to bring some kind of order into the chaos, or to pump some kind of reality into the illusion, and say, this is a moral cause, this is a moral thing that's right. And yet, when you look at morality, there is no universal agreement on this planet about morality. You can go to many different cultures in different countries, and you may find some agreement around the idea of thou shalt not kill, and then, except when you start to define the killing, and some will say, well, you can kill in self-defense, or you can kill the animals, or you can kill the plants, and then we have a system again of what can be killed and what can't be killed. But there's no universal agreement from all the people on earth about what can be killed and what can't be killed. We've had cultures that have shown that contradiction throughout history, that there's no universal agreement. And it's the same with ethics. We can come up with laws and systems of ethics, but there's still widespread disagreement on what is ethical and what is unethical. Where do you cross that line? It's like saying, is something legal or illegal? Well, depends on what country, what culture, what criminal justice system, what political system you have, that you have that line of what's legal and what's illegal. In fact, that even changes over time. There was a time when in the United States they had a prohibition, where drinking alcohol was illegal. Nowadays it may seem like a joke. What? Illegal alcohol? Now it's just certain age limits. That was like across the board. So we're talking about all these opinions, these relative concepts. They are very relative, and there is no universal agreement among them. And so why would you try to take a stance and hold an opinion about relative values? It would seem kind of crazy to try to take it when there's no universal agreement. There's always going to be someone seeming to oppose you, no matter what stance you take, for or against something. You're still playing in the realm of duality and multiplicity. So, for me it has been very practical to say, okay, if I'm not going to follow all these opinions and conditioning, beliefs that I've learned and beliefs that I hold, what am I going to follow? How will I practically live and experience my life? And I say the answer is guidance, intuition, that we all have an intuitive self that is so wise that it already knows the answer to every question. It's that wise. You never stump your intuition. You can ignore it and say, no. But you can never give the intuition a question that it can't answer. In fact, in A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, there are many answers you have received but have not heard. Received but have not heard. In other words, the wisdom is there, it's already present, and yet if you don't have the ears to hear, if you have too many blinders on, if you have too many desires, cravings for illusions, and the truth whispers, you are the child of God, and you say, I don't think so, I think I'm something far short of that, then the intuition has to wait and can't give you that answer until you're ready to receive that answer and experience that. So that's the alternative to judgment, I would say, is guidance or intuition. And this intuition is so wise that as long as you still believe in duality, this intuition will use the symbols and words of duality to reach your consciousness. You know, as long as you believe in words, it will use words. As long as you believe in multiplicity, it will use those kind of ideas and concepts. Kind of like to take you up the mountain, you know, or to help you climb the ladder of consciousness, until you get to the point where you go beyond the words. You just enter a state of being that's so pure and so wonderful that words would be like a joke. Like something I heard when I was growing up was, you know, if you can't improve upon the silence, don't say anything. Or another version was, if you don't have something good to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. That's just some wisdom behind that. In other words, let your words be purposeful if they're going to be spoken. Let them be to heal and to bless, not to injure or to deceive. So, how is it going? Are these ideas resonating? Is there a little resonance tickling in there in the core of your being? You know, this is, when we're talking about this is something that I would say you can recognize. You definitely can recognize it. Because when it flows like this, it's free from contradiction. You don't have that yes but, yes but going. And even if you do have the yes but that comes in, then you can be willing to take a look at, well, what is it that I believe that makes me have a but, that makes me hesitate and say, instead of a full yes, only a partial yes. Then you've got something to look at or to expose and explore. Sometimes I tell the story, you all might have an awareness and remember John Lennon and Yoko Ono. John Lennon, they actually came together with the desire to extend peace. In fact, when they came together and were in a relationship, they came together very quickly, and basically they were trying to decide whether to have a relationship, and they both asked each other one question: what is it that we have to give? What is it that we have to extend? That was the only purpose of them coming together. They both could see. They weren't really interested in what they could get from one another, but what is it that we can give together? And they had to really think hard on that. Like, what is it? You know, John had a lot of music and inspiration coming through, and Yoko had a lot of art pouring through her, and yet even that, the music and the art, they were like, no, that's not it. What is it that we really give? And they came up with peace. So they came together to attempt to extend peace. Hiring billboards, give peace a chance. War is over. Imagine a giant billboard in New York City with 3 words in black, bold black, on a white background. War is over. And then smaller letters, if you want it. Very wise. You know, they decided to use their resources, whatever they seemed to have, to share a message of peace and love. And it really touched people. But what I'm going to share with you is a little bit of their story, in the sense that John was, he was interested in Yoko. He was very interested in Yoko, but he was holding back a little bit and just seeing how it would unfold and flow and everything. And the story goes is he went to a gallery. She was showing a lot of her art at a gallery, and he went to the gallery, and she invited him in and showed him around the gallery, and he was walking on his own, kind of exploring all the different pieces of art and everything. And he came upon a ladder right in the middle of the art gallery, and he looked at the ladder, and there was a magnifying glass hanging from a piece of string on the ceiling of this tall, high-ceiling gallery. And he looked up, and there was something up there on the ceiling, but you had to go and get it to see what it was. You had to climb the ladder, actually take an active climb, and then actually take the magnifying glass in hand, and then hold it up, and only then could you peer through the magnifying glass, and there was some word that was up there. And so he went up the ladder, he grabbed the magnifying glass, he held it up there, and guess what the word was?
Grace.
Yes! Yes! And he fell in love. That was all it took. Yoko got it. With that one. It was active. He had to take an active step. And he went, yes. He said that just felt so positive. That was a very simple, straightforward word, and it was very positive. And so they did devote their lives, even though he was chased, the United States tried to deport him, and he was hounded and different things. Most mystics and saints and prophets have all gone through the same kind of ordeals. But basically, he and Yoko, even after one of their love-ins, where they would invite all the press and everything to come, as they were sitting in a bed and having one of their love-ins, inviting the press to come and share their peaceful ideas. They had very innovative ways of doing this peace work. They realized one night, after everybody had gone home, that they were just laying there and looking from the bed up through the window at the stars, and they just felt such happiness and peace and bliss that they even then realized that moment they were sharing together was the peace that they were trying to share. They actually had an experience of this glorious moment that was beyond the press conferences, beyond the billboards, beyond the speaking and the music and everything else. It was just an experience so simple and so sublime that they actually knew that they had actually experienced what they wanted to give and offer. And it was a practice for them, much like Gandhi was always experimenting with the truth, to make it a practice, a living experience in his heart. He wanted to share a living experience. So that's what I want to offer to all of you tonight. That's what we've been exploring all week since we got here on Saturday. We've been really coming with that intention to have an experience of that joy, that happiness, that love. And as what Raj was saying, it is almost like having a big soup of love and just swimming in the soup. There's been many kind of miraculous expressions, things that have just come into awareness so easily because there's such a willingness and acceptance and so much sharing from the heart. And yet, I want to open up, we have this public night so that you can ask any questions in a very practical way of things that are going on in your life or your experience that you can't seem to get a handle on, or they seem to be demanding a lot of your attention, too much of your attention, and they're not coming to a sense of resolution or harmony. They're still kind of they're like the songs on the top 40. They just keep coming around week after week and cycling back. And after they've done this for a number of weeks, they start to get called an issue. Do I have an issue? I had a passing thought there, but after a few weeks of this, I think I might have an issue. And then we've got something to resolve, And I would say in the end, it's an identity confusion. If you are the child of God, and that will never change, the child of God is created by a perfect creator, so the child of God really can't have an issue. It's human beings that try to wear the mask and pretend and hide their own divinity, their own joy, their own perfection, that those masks seem to have a lot of issues. But in the end, I think we can learn to expose the mask and start to have a good belly laugh. I guess there are no bellies in heaven, but you know what I mean. A big laugh at what seemed to be a very big problem. Suddenly it's shrunk down to nothing when it's held up to the light, the truth. So I welcome any questions, issues, expressions of miracles. Just please express whatever is on your heart.
David, once I've got a question that's been circulating in my mind. It's about resistance, and just over the past year or so, I've been looking at, just noticing that there seems to be different levels of resistance. Some people seem to be able to jump into this stuff quite quickly and read the books and be very open to it. And it seems like there's another end to that scale where there's a knowing that that this is a path to be taken, but there's a very strong resistance to it. And so I kind of see myself at the end where there's a strong resistance, and I sometimes wonder whether or not I'm kidding myself with this, and because I can come along to a retreat and get quite inspired seeing you and being around this whole energy, but then I find that I find myself putting it back at arm's length, and then I'll come back to another retreat. My question is, it's one of, I guess, there's two questions. One is, how do I know if I'm sort of kidding myself with this sort of thing? Is there a question I can ask? And the second thing is, do you have any sort of tips for encountering that strong resistance? Say, for example, picking up the book or listening to a CD, getting 5 minutes into it and just getting frustrated and wanting to walk away from it, but at the same time wanting to be involved in it. Like, it's just a strong resistance that I come up to. I don't know if you had a response to that.
Yeah. First of all, one of the questions is like, how do you gauge it? How do you gauge resistance? There's a phrase that I've used for years, and we were having lunch the other day, and it came up. Proof is in the pudding, which means for me it's the experience. What is your experience? You can look at your experience and whether it seems to be consistently peaceful and happy and joyful and light and free, or whether the experience seems to be a vacillation or dips, kind of like more like a bell curve in reverse, dips and peaks and so on and so forth. When Jesus was first dictating A Course in Miracles, just to use an example, these two people came together, called out, there has to be a better way, and a woman started hearing an inner voice dictation that said, "This is A Course in Miracles, please take notes." And didn't realize it was Jesus talking to her, but basically dictated an introduction that I mentioned, a summary, and then started dictating chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Moving on, somewhere through these chapters, her and her friend, who asked for a better way, at one point just went, "Oh, Jesus, but before we go on with the dictation, about separation and illusion and opening, awakening to divine love, can we just ask one tiny question here before we continue on with this dictation?" It's like, yes. How could this happen in the first place? And Jesus, his answer was, well, you can tell by your daily emotional experiences that you believe that the separation occurred. That's how he answered them. You believe that it occurred. And so it's that experience, again, if the experiences can tell you that this emotional roller coaster ride is coming from a belief in fragmentation or separation, that if you're going through this, then there must be resistance. That's the way to tell if you have resistance. It's like a stable, flowing, easy, natural experience of peace. It's very, very consistent and stable. That's a good way of knowing that you're not in resistance, that you're wide open. There was another point where Helen was taking down the words from Jesus, and one morning she woke up and it was like this blazing lights, blazing letters, where Jesus had this phrase, but it was like all the letters were just like blazing, almost like fire. And it's almost like, take notice. Imagine, it's like a burning bush, but letters. Never underestimate the power of denial. That was what Jesus was saying. Denial. We've heard about that defense mechanism from psychology. Denial, repression, pushing out of awareness. That you might say that the human condition is part of an attempt to deny the truth, or to deny love from awareness. It's still there, but it's just pushed out of awareness. And so I would say that your question about resistance relates directly to denial. That to the extent that you are in denial, that you will be in resistance. And to the extent that you have exposed and released the denial mechanism, which is the ego, to that extent there's no resistance. No resistance to love, to the flowing, expressive, expansive, radiant experience of that love. So the other thing that comes to mind is like readiness. Sometimes people say, I'm ready, willing, and able. Very interesting. Ready, willing, and able. Three very interesting aspects that have to all be present. And it's more like Jesus is saying, oh, forget the able. You're very able. You're a child of God. You are very, very able. Ready and willing, we have to take a little closer look at. Because even if you're willing, I'm willing, like the little train, I can do it. If you're really not ready, then no matter how willing you are, there's still going to be resistance. So that's why, in order for there to be the resistance level to go down, you really have to be ready and willing. And this readiness is not something that science can measure, or that there's anybody's been able to come up with a quantifiable way of defining it, or describing it, or measuring it. I mean, it's tough enough with willingness. How do you quantify willingness? Jesus keeps saying, it just takes a little willingness. Okay, all right, I get it, just a little willingness. But then this readiness thing is over there. And you might say that from a reincarnational perspective, or a perspective of like the soul's journey, sometimes they'll say, oh, you're an old soul. That's supposed to be good, I think, You've been around a long, long time. Oh, great. Is that, am I a dumb soul? Just can't get it? Or is that supposed to be positive or negative? Old soul? But generally speaking, old soul is kind of like, you've been through hell and back so many times and around the wheel that you're just about ready to get off the wheel, and you're pretty ready. You're ready. You're baked. Time to get the cookies out of the oven. Any more, and we're talking black. It's all nose risen. It's turning brown. And
this is the dilemma I have. It's like the willingness is there, but there's this background doubt in my mind that I'm not ready. Maybe it's not this lifetime. And if that's the case, then I feel like I can't go back to the way I used to live my life. So it's kind of like I feel like I'm hanging in a mid-space a little bit. Like Neo at the Oracle, or like when you get the ask, am I the one? And she says,
well, in one sense, I'll tell you, the good news is that there is such a thing called destiny. When the ultimate destiny is that you must wake up to who you are, and there's nothing that can prevent that. That's good. The other thing is the script is written, so, you know, try as you may as a human being, the script, it's already been determined, the point in the moment when you wake up. In fact, you can, but just by praying and desiring it, you can seem to bring it closer into your awareness, but the script itself is part of a prearranged plan that you shouldn't have to worry about, you know, did I take the wrong turn or this and that, you know. It's more just paying attention to your emotions. I have a friend of mine too who just emailed me several days ago, Gary Renard, and some of you might have heard of his book, Disappearance of the Universe. And in it, you know, he basically was a pretty quiet, shy guy, a musician who lived in Maine, and these two ascended masters showed up on his couch one day and started answering all his questions, a male and a female, Arden and Persa. And basically, in 8 years, they just answered a bunch of his questions and put it in a book, and it's called Disappearance of the Universe. And basically, they told him, you're not going to wake up this lifetime. It's going to be next lifetime. But you've got work to do. Nevertheless, this work, this function will make you happier and happier and happier. But don't be so concerned about waking up in this lifetime before you die. It's going to be next lifetime, using that metaphor, that context. So you could say that even if it seems to be a struggle, or even if you have this willingness, but there's something, maybe you're not as ready, or maybe it's more like an iceberg, that the tip of the iceberg looks like, I can handle this, and then under the surface of the water it's like, oh, don't even show it to me. You know, it's down there. It still comes down to just your willingness to take what you can, you know, what's given, and make the best use of time in alignment with the Spirit that you can. There's no point in comparing with other people.
Yeah.
That's going to be stress. There's no point in putting pressure on yourself, saying, I better get this or else. You know, it's when you start to feel almost like a Picasso painting a painting, you know, not concerned about how many strokes are going to be on the canvas, but just in the divine flow of, okay, whatever it takes, I'm going to let the Spirit paint this painting through me, and I'm not going to look around and try to figure out where I stand on the evolutionary waking up continuum or whatever. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other, take one step at a time, take one breath at a time, and I'm going to give myself over to this calling that's calling me home. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, I certainly, at the beginning, had my resistances. Even when I read the Course for 8 hours a day, and I was excited and enthused and joyful, even with that, after about 8 hours of reading it per day, these eyelids got very heavy, like little lead weights were on them. Like the ego was going, no way, stop reading, and it was like the window shades are closing, you know, like no more, no mas. And so basically I would like stop, and I would just listen for intuitive guidance or feeling, take a nap, go for a swim, take a walk, have a snack, you know, go watch a TV show, go to a movie, you know, whatever. And I'd say, okay, great. So almost like saying, good work, 8 hours, that's great. Now have some fun, go play, you know, don't feel like, you know, you have to drive yourself, push yourself. Don't try to feel like there's a sense of coercion, like there's a slave driver, you know, driving you. Be fun. you have to be eager and feel a sense of joy and fun with it. And so that's what I would do. And then I would come back refreshed and go at it for another 8 hours the next day until the same thing would happen, and then follow the guidance again. So it was very much like the Holy Spirit and I and Jesus and I were in partnership. Like, we're partners here, and nobody's driving nobody else. You know, it was like, here's the suggestions, this would be helpful. Great. This is exciting, this is fun. Go with it, go with it. I just got more joyful and more happy as I went with it. But there was never, I never let myself get into feelings of coercion, like I was being pushed, you know, or pushed too fast.
Just listen there.
And just listen here. And that's how you can tell, you know, if you're willing, and you're willing, but the readiness isn't quite there, so be it. If you feel like you have to step aside from the studies or the practice for a while, there's nobody, no punishment. You know, God's not up there going, look at him now. He's a loafer. He's loafing. It's like God is not a judge. God is not judging the process. I used to tell people when they would say, is God judging me and watching over me when I mess up on my spiritual practices? And I said, no, it's more like there's like 1,000,000 angels, and there are 1,000,000 angels giving you a standing ovation just for making the attempts to wake up from the dream. Like, yay, they're going for it, yes, you know. Not a sense of somebody looking over, like a parental figure, oops, you missed this, and you could have done this better, and you missed the practice period, you know. There's none of that. Even with vows, you break a vow, it's like the angels are still cheering, you know, come back, keep coming. Yes?
I often hear people talk of the quickening, how things are speeding up. Is there a time limit, like if we don't get it by Friday?
No.
Will this go on forever? Will we know it in this lifetime, or is there a big end coming?
Well, the end, you might say, the end of suffering, and the only point that enlightenment, self-realization are possible is now. It's only in the present moment. So it's not really on the timeline. In fact, it's transcending the timeline. You know, as Eckhart Tolle talked about the power of now. It's definitely in the now, the eternal present, the holy instant, where is the end. You might say there was when the separation seemed to occur, which is the belief in time, linear time. The answer was given simultaneously, and because it was given simultaneously, a limit was built in to the amount that you could suffer. In other words, the Holy Spirit was so loving and so gracious, and it's like, you may run, you may hide, you may try to bury yourself away and not face the truth and the guilt, but there's a limit based on the amount that you can suffer. There's a time limit on suffering, but not on anything else. There's definitely not a limit on awakening. In the fact that as you're really willing to awaken, that's what the quickening is. You might say that just collapses time. Like if time was this long line, the miracles just like I say it's like chopping celery. Chop, 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 chop. You're chopping away, and the celery stick's going, it's getting shorter to the time that you accept the correction for the error. And it's really not then a matter of time, it's more a matter of willingness and readiness. Because when you're willing and ready, the miracles just collapse the time. And so it's not like, oh, I have to endure, you know, this and this and this. It can seem that way from a linear perspective. Like my friend Gary, you know, he was told by Arten Pursa, the Ascended Masters, you won't wake up in this lifetime. It'll be next lifetime. But nevertheless, don't be disheartened. There's work to do. There's lots of miracles to share. There's lots of things we can use time constructively, you know, for the benefit of everybody, to collapse it for everybody. And that's what we're all doing. You know, when you have a miracle experience, when you have a glimpse of that love, you save time for the whole universe. Because really, there's just one mind. And so when you're doing it for yourself, you literally are doing it for everyone. And it's a huge blessing. So when you devote your care and your time and your energy to being a miracle worker, for example, or learning to truly forgive, it's a huge gift for everyone. And there's really no greater gift. It's more than $1 million, or anything that would seem to be in form. It's the greatest gift that you can offer.
I think that's what it's been, thinking in terms of linear time. If I don't get it right in this lifetime, then I've sort of blown it or something like that.
Yeah.
I've missed the boat type feeling.
Yeah, time and guilt go hand in hand. In fact, the scribe of A Course in Miracles, she had a highly elevated scribal ability, so that she could hear the voice of Jesus. And even with that, there was so much ego resistance that he would have to keep re-going over the sentences over and over that he would dictate. What I said was, what you wrote was. Okay, let's come back. What I said was, what you wrote. And so it took 7 years of dictation. And she also had a profession. She was a research psychologist. So he had to work with that and her whims and desires. And she had a husband and a staff at work and so forth. So it was all within that context. But in the dictating, Jesus did share that she had developed this scribal ability in a previous lifetime, a number of lifetimes back. But she had misused it so badly in one of these lifetimes as a priestess. She was like, whoa, look at the power I've got here. I got the power. It's like the ego. Some of you have seen Bruce Almighty. I've got the power. Kind of misused it a bit there, lessening the moon and this and that. Anyway, it was so misused, the scribal ability, that there was so much guilt over the misuse of this scribal ability that was lifetimes ago, that when she now was called upon to use the skill in the plan of awakening, that it took 7 years because of the resistance. And the reason the resistance was there because of the guilt that she had misused the ability. Meanwhile, we have Jesus going, I love you. I don't think you've done anything wrong. I'm going to give you this course to show you you're perfectly innocent, and you never made the mistake in the first place. You never did misuse the ability. You could never separate from God. And at one point, Helen thought, that she had done this great thing by bringing the course into this world. It was like her baby. And Jesus, finally, at the end of her life, was basically telling her, you thought that was what it was all about, was the book. But it was all about my love for you. I love you. It was never about the book or the words. That was just helpful. It will be extremely helpful to learn to forgive. But it was, I love you. It wasn't that you completed some task. It was, my love for you is what the whole thing, that is the gift. That's the only gift. And we're the same one, too. That we are the same. Helen had a vision one time where she and her colleague Bill were there kneeling in a church in this very reverent state. And then they looked up, and there was Jesus. And he walked down to where they were, and he got down on his knees, and the three of them were kneeling together in honor of God. And that's what Jesus was teaching 2,000 years ago. Why do you call me good? There was never a sense of trying to draw attention to individuality or personality. We have a glorious God, we have a glorious Creator, and everything Jesus did was to glorify the Creator. In fact, there's even a workbook lesson that people have a lot of difficulty with in the Course that says, I choose the second place to gain the first. That's the whole problem, was that the ego was the belief that you could usurp the Creator. The ego comes along and says, why settle for being a creation of God? You can be the prime Creator. You can make up a world where you are number one, where everything revolves around you, and you can have any whim, any desire, and you can create yourself to be any way that you want. If you don't like it, then make another invention. Keep reinventing yourself. Do it 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting. Variety is the spice of life. Da-da-da-da. Oh, it was a trick. Because God is God. And Jesus came to that humble experience that I and the Father are one. He wasn't. Some Christians actually interpret that, and some people in the New Age interpret that to say that Jesus was saying, I am God. But he carefully says in A Course in Miracles that there's two parts to I and the Father are one. Not in spirit. They're really one in spirit. They're the same spirit. But in terms of creation, the Creator created Christ. Christ did not create God. And that's a distinction the ego just jumped on. Oh, are you going to settle for that? Being the created? You can do a lot better than that. You can take over. Let's take over the kingpin, the queenpin. Let's go for God and see if you can usurp God. And that's where the guilt and the resistance come in, is still believing that crazy idea that it's possible to usurp the Creator. And Jesus just came along and said, no, happily, it's not possible. You will forever be, like the song said, you are the child of God, and that will never change. And beautiful.
So I've had a question about Gary's book for a while, which you can probably resolve. Because in it, they say the script, no free will, and then they appear to say, if I understand correctly, well, you know, you can sometimes you can get the girl, sometimes you don't get the girl, but the important stuff is all fixed, like your forgiveness opportunities or something is all fixed. And then they say that when you do forgive, it collapses time. So he says, you know, he complains about a rotten movie he's seen, and they said, hey, if you'd seen the other movie, you would have had a car crash, but you've been doing all this forgiveness work, so you didn't need that. And I get confused. I'm like, well, if the forgiveness miracles collapse time, how can it all be fixed? And how can the date of his awakening be fixed if stuff has been collapsed? And yet sometimes, you know, they're saying you can come back lifetime after lifetime and experience the same lifetime again and get the girl or not get the girl, and I don't get it.
Yeah, it's very much like a thing of the quickening. Lynn was bringing up the quickening, and actually Helen Schuckman was told that the world is worsening to an alarming extent, and people are being called from all over to accept their part in the plan of atonement. And people have asked me like that. They said the world is worsening, you know, to an alarming rate. If the world's unreal and an illusion, how can it be worsening? How can it be getting worse if it doesn't even exist? It's like saying the illusion is worsening, you know. But again, the spirit, as I said, must come through and reach the mind on what it believes, you know. And in the sense of Helen Schuckman, a research psychologist who's really not into spirituality or this and this and this, she just seems to have this ability, and it was a symbol that there was something that was very important, almost urgent, that would be very helpful if she would complete this task. And that she had already said yes, way back in her mind somewhere, and she was now going to complete her part in a prearranged plan. You're getting into the part like the prearranged. It's prearranged, how can it be collapsed? You know, it's good, you're asking a lot of these deep questions. I would say that there's a lot of metaphors in the Course, like he's got the carpet of time that rolls up, he mentions in A Course in Miracles, and he describes it in different ways. But as long as we're talking about the script in a linear way, the most important thing to say is the reason that it's fixed, the reason that the script is written and it's fixed, is because it is the past. It's the entire script is the past, just like if you would seem to go to a movie theater and you watch a movie many different times, we'll say Gone with the Wind or something like this, and Rhett Butler, you know, has the famous line in there, frankly, my darling, you know, talking to Scarlett, I don't I don't give a damn. Yeah, I don't give a damn. So you're sitting there and you're watching the movie for the 59th time, and you're saying, Red, as you get close to the scene, Red, I'm warning you, treat her like a lady. I've seen it 58 times. You better shape up. Watch your leg. I'm watching you, warning you.
Oh, God.
Did it again. Gosh, you can't believe it. When is he ever going to learn? You know, it's like, it's in the can. It's been shot. It's been filmed. It's not an interactive kind of thing. You know, you're watching something that's been filmed. You know, it's an ancient movie. It's from way back. And to try to change something, it would be like talking to the theater, when some people do talk in movie theaters. Don't go in there. but it's still as if it's interactive, like, oh right, Julia Roberts is going to stop and go, oh thank you. I'll avoid that door. So it's like it's not interactive. It's done. It's finished. And so where it seems to get complex in terms of the collapsing of time and some of those metaphors about another movie and this and that, it's still this idea that the script is linear. And what I tell people is even the concept of a linear script, remember, is just a metaphor. You want something more accurate than a linear script? How about simultaneity? Some of you have read that in the Seth material and other spiritual material, maybe Alice Bailey and all the different ones that are there. It's simultaneous.